Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television GPTV. I'm Brett. In my hands is a new graphic novel from Microcosm Publishing. This one came out last week. You should be able to get it in stores and comic shops and bookstores and stuff like that. It's really interesting. So it's biography, or somewhat biography, about GG Allin. Kind of just going through his life, telling you more about the rock and roll shock jock. I don't really know how to describe him, because he's just that over the top and crazy. Now, GG Allin's is a musician who I've known of, and I kind of knew like some of the antics, but I really didn't know his story at all. So the fact this was, pitched and promoted and all that, like, I was super happy because I could finally dive in and find out more about GG Allin. And the dude is as twisted as I expected, or like I actually might be even more so. Like there's a lot in here that's just jacked up. So, Reid Chancellor is the one behind this, doing the story and the art. There's some research or a lot of resources in it. And Reid Chancellor does it in interesting ways. Like, it opens and closes with kind of his general thoughts about creating this graphic novel and what went into it. So GG Allin, this is like the best way to describe him. He was a shock musician, shock rocker. A lot of people, when they think of like shock rock, like that stuff that was over the top antics, they think like in the early days of like Gene Simmons and Blood Down His Tongue, or Alice Cooper, or today might be Guar a little bit. I know there's a lot more out there, but those are kind of the more mainstream examples that a lot of people know. GG Allin takes it to a whole other level. The dude would literally take dump on the stage and throw it at the audience, or he would beat up the audience. Literally beat up the audience. Where I first heard about him was a friend who would bring him up every so often. And what I knew about him was that like he would cut himself on stage, which was a thing that he did, and then poop on stage and like roll around in the poop with the wounds, which is not a good combo. So he was just a guy who constantly had like festering nastiness about him. So the things I didn't know is he thought of himself as like a rock and roll Jesus, and the big question and what the graphic novel and Reid leaves out there is how much of this was actually GG Allin and how much of this was like a character of GG Allin. The dude had some really sadomasochistic tendencies, and if that's their thing, that's fine as long as everyone's consenting. His partners weren't necessarily consenting, clearly had substance issues. Reid kind of brings up is like there might have been some mental issues, and the graphic novel, like, you definitely sit there and be like, dude, this guy's bonkers. But I never got like the sense of like he suffered from X, Y, and Z as far as actual mental problems. He actually seemed to be pretty in control of his faculties, and like this was just who he was. Now the question again is, was this a character or was this like really who he was? And the fact that he was acting this way around others makes you think like this was really who he was. And not even like others like groupies where he, had to put on a front for groupies or whatever. Like it seems even like the other musicians, his brother, family and all that, like they all seem to have kind of dealt with this same personality. And I think that's the really, really interesting thing. So while it still leaves GG Allin up a lot of it's a mystery, like coming out at the end of this, I really felt like I understood more of the mystery in him. Like, I don't necessarily want to go and listen to music. Like, there was nothing that got me kind of interested in music at all. But he seems to be like a really interesting person and character. He's dead now, but it's one of those people where you just kind of wonder where fact and fiction kind of came together, and like where the character ended and where the person began. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are like that. Andy Kaufman's example, New Jack in wrestling is an example of that. He is that example for music. And what's really interesting is towards the end, and the whole time I went there, I was like, this feels like a wrestling character more. Like, he would have fit totally perfect in, like, ECW. That's a great way of describing, actually, GG Allin. GG Allin is the ECW of music, of rock and roll. And at the end, it kind of brings that up. It's like, GG Allin would have been perfect in wrestling. Like, maybe he just went into the wrong business. And even if, like, he went into wrestling, he would have been, you know, a decade ahead of everything, probably. Like, I don't know exactly when ECW totally started, but he still feels like he would probably have been, like, a decade ahead of that. So it's really interesting to read and learn about him. So, I mean, it's one of those, like, if you don't know who he is and you just want to read about a really whacked out rock and roll musician, this is great. Rock and Roll Terrorist, the graphic life of shock rocker GG Allin is awesome. Like, this is a really cool graphic novel. Like, I walked out of it feeling like I got a good idea of who he is and, like, why he was important and why there's a graphic novel about him. You know, I still have a lot of questions. You know, this isn't... And the thing is, like, even Reid Chancellor kind of leaves it at he doesn't know the answers, and no one really knows the answers. So it's, you know, I might have questions, and my question really is like, you know, what was him and what was a character, or was it all him? I don't know if anyone's actually ever going to be able to answer that. So, I mean, now he's dead. He definitely can't do that. Also, like, towards the end of the day, his last, you know, bit before he died, like, that's the next, it would be another great question of just, like, what was kind of going through his head and mind. It's, like, again, something that, you know, we're never going to get an answer to. So, for me, it's, like, it's a really fascinating graphic novel, really interesting, discussion of his life and kind of taking us through key things of just the abuse, the abuse to him, the abuse that he inflicted upon others, you know, his music career. Generally, you know, I don't know how much it really hits in the controversy. Like, I thought there was more arrests and issues in that department, but I could be wrong. It's just I walked away, I think, having a better sense as to why this person was important, and for that, like, the graphic novel does a fantastic job of getting it out there. The other thing that I like and I think is really smart, I'm going to kind of skip the opening with the creator, Reid Chancellor, his bit, and just kind of get to, like, the GG Allin stuff. You know, we're going to throw out that where he just says, like, you know, I'm not sure how much is real and what's not. It's the style, like, it's very indie comics, kind of very indie rock in that way, and I like it. Very small press, which is a good thing. And the reason why I actually think this art style really works and works well is because I think if you went and took this subject and did it in color and did it in a more realistic style, it would have taken you out of the read. Like, GG Allin was effed in the head. Like, I mean, you saw it here, like the one in the picture showed, he's taking a dump on stage and picking it up and throwing it at people. Like, there is something functionally wrong with you. Like, I remember the kid who, like, in summer camp who, like, took a dump and, like, picked it up and threw it at people, and we all ran from him and stayed the hell away from him for the rest of summer camp. Like, that's not a normal behavior. So, you know, if you did all that, I think, in a realistic art style, like, it would have taken me out of it. Like, I would have been focused on that, and honestly, I would have been grossed out. Like, it is fetid and foul. Like, I've seen and know of really jacked up stuff, and this even crossed the line of me just going, what the hell? So, it's interesting. As I say, it's really, really interesting to read. I walked away, I think, getting a better understanding of GG Allin, the music, like, why I was bored, everything. So, I dig it. I really, really dig it. If you like music, if you like comics, if you want to learn a little bit about GG Allin, like, it's not this in-depth bio as, like, some things are, but I think it's just a good walkthrough of his life and all that, to kind of give you, like, not quite the Cliff's Notes version, but, like, I think you get a good sense as to who he is, why he was important, and all that stuff, and the kind of the, you know, orbit that he was in, and people that were in his orbit. So, interesting stuff. Really, really interesting stuff. Out now. You can go get it. We'll have some links underneath this video. You can put in your zip code. It'll tell if a shop's near you. and a link below, and definitely go support your shops. And then if your shop doesn't can't get it for whatever reason, or you don't have a shop near you, we've got links where you can purchase it. Some of them will be to comic shops where you can go support them. We'll also have a link to the Microcosm site, so you can just buy it directly from them as well. Yeah, so go support your comics, and if you're into music, check this one out. Whew, a long-winded one. If you, as always, much appreciated. I really thank you for watching, and thank Microcosm Publishing for providing me the graphic novel to read. It was one I was actually really excited for to check out, just because I've heard of GG Allin for probably like 20 years at this point. I've just never really dove into, over 20 years, never really dove into to find out more about him. So you can go get this, check it out, it's pretty cool. Thank you for watching, thank you Microcosm. If you want the latest graphic novel and comic news, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, everywhere, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. So until next time, keep reading those comics, and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.